This is Ray Oberly, Supervisor for the Town of Clinton. Wish to thank you all for attending this presentation to learn more about the energy program that we're embarking on for the town. I have to read a little boilerplate here as part of the normal thing since we're in the virus program. Members of the Hudson Valley Community Power Partnership hold this presentation on this day via teleconferencing using WebEx with a live stream to the public due to the novel coronavirus called COVID-19 emergency, New York State and federal bans on large meetings and gatherings, and pursuant to Governor Cuomo's Executive Order 201.1 as extended, suspending the open meetings law. Via WebEx present were Supervisor Oberly, Ray Oberly, and presenter Program Director Jeff Dominski from Hudson Valley Energy, the nonprofit local program organizer for the Hudson Valley Community Power Partnership. There was audience participation while the residents viewed the presentation as it was live streamed on WebEx, and they could listen, see, and ask questions. The video and PowerPoint presentation will be placed on the town's webpage, which is www.townofclinton.com, and also on YouTube. Jeffrey Dominski managed the technical aspects of the WebEx presentation as administrator. At this point, I turn it over to him, and he will do the presentation with a slide presentation being shown in the background, and all of that material will be then put on the town webpage. Go for it, Jeff.
Thanks so much, Ray. And it's so great to have you here, and it's so great to be part of this partnership program with the town of Clinton. Very excited that we've launched the program. So many great people, including people on the phone tonight, have worked hard to bring this to Clinton and to join the other communities here in the Hudson Valley that are doing this program. So it's really quite wonderful and a great achievement. And that's what we're going to describe tonight, what this program is, what it represents, what the choices are. The program is called generically Community Choice Aggregation, and I've got a slide coming up where I'll describe it. But these are the presenters. Ray, I'm going to ask you to definitely stick around because there's points that will be great to hear more about your experience and your reasonings for being part of this program. And I'm so glad you'll stick around to answer questions. Raymond Oberly is the supervisor of the town of Clinton. I am Jeff Bradansky from Hudson Valley Energy, which is a local nonprofit based here in Beacon in Dutchess County. And my organization serves as a local program manager for the Hudson Valley Community Power Partnership. And I think with us, will be joining us at some point, perhaps to answer questions, will be Glenn Weinberg, my partner, who is the selected program administrator, an approved administrator in New York State to oversee community choice aggregation programs. And so glad to be here and answer questions. And this is what we're going to cover tonight. This is our agenda. We will talk at a very beginning level about what is community choice aggregation. And again, I'm going to indulge in using CCA, the acronym for community choice aggregation, with some frequency, because it is very common that people refer to this program as CCA around the state. It is gaining in momentum, and I'll show you a slide with lots of communities that have been passed enabling laws, done what Clinton's done, of passing a law to do CCA. And so it is something that's spreading quite wide around New York. After describing in general terms what community choice aggregation is, we'll talk about our partnership program, the Hudson Valley Community Power CCA program, with details, including details and snapshots of the letters that many of you have received, announcing the start of this program. Then we'll get into some details about where we're at in Clinton, what the next steps are, what the options are for Clinton community members. After that, I have one slide that serves as a good reminder point for me to talk about frequently asked questions, the common questions we get asked about the program. And I provide answers to those questions. So it's a good review of things that I've hopefully talked about, but it's a good catch to talk about something that I may have forgotten to talk about. So that's a review. The last bullet, or last agenda item, is to talk about CCA and how it relates to another program that's available in the state. called community solar. And it's a concurrent opportunity that's parallel. It's different from CCA in a number of ways, but it's often confused. And it is something that we want people to understand the differences and how they can work together, but understand that it's not something anyone has to do. But it is something also that was shared in the mailings that went out to folks with the launch of the program, because it is such a great opportunity to work together. So I'm going to jump into our first agenda item about what is community choice aggregation, but I will take a moment to say, please, folks, if you could mute yourself and turn off your video, just to save the bandwidth and to prevent background noise as we're going through the presentation. So please do mute yourselves and turn off video for the time being, but please do use the chat window for questions. I already see some questions are coming in. And I think Roberto is being great in replying to some questions as well. But we will definitely have time for questions at the end. All right, so moving on to this first topic, what is community choice aggregation? And in one slide, in one sentence, community choice aggregation is a policy in New York State and in 7 other states in the US that allows municipalities to source energy on behalf of their residents and businesses and other organizations in those communities. In a nutshell, to put it another way, it allows cities and towns and villages to form a buying club on behalf of their citizens, their residents. It was enabled in New York State in 2016. It can be used for both heating and for gas largely, and for electricity. But for us, we focus just on electricity. So that's a very important distinction. And there's a reason for that. And it's linked to the why behind community choice aggregation. Why is Clinton pursuing this? Why did New York enable CCA in the state? And in essence, there are 3 top reasons why the state has enabled it and why cities and towns and villages around New York are pursuing it. It's because through this buying club for electricity, the cities and towns and villages are able to provide a public benefit win-win-win opportunity to their community members. 1, the potential for saving money on their electricity bills, while also 2, promoting clean energy in the state. And that is a very significant goal for our organizations, our partnership. This idea that you can promote clean energy and save money. And third, which I think is one of the most important aspects for the widest members and the widest audiences, is that there are a number of consumer protection aspects built into this. CCA, community choice aggregation, this idea that cities and towns and villages can form a buying club to price electricity for their citizens. It's based on something that's been available to every utility customer in New York since the late 1990s, where there is a whole marketplace for electricity supply. What happened in 2016 is that cities and towns and villages were given the ability to do this on behalf of their citizens through the power of numbers. And so that's what's different. It does provide this win-win-win scenario, including the consumer protection aspect, which addresses a number of challenges that existed for individual customers who had this ability to source electricity in contracts with various companies that have been established. But one thing you'll hear me talk about in a bit is that there had been lots of bad experiences. Many happy people, but there have been lots of bad experiences, which this idea of a community choice aggregation program seeks to prevent from happening through complete flexibility, no restrictions, and transparency in what it's offering, that it's a simple choice option for the residents of these communities. So that in one slide is what community choice aggregation is. It's helpful for a sense of where we were and where we're going before and after community choice aggregation with respect to electricity supply choice. And I'll show you on an upcoming slide my Central Hudson bill, which shows that there's 2 bills in one on the Central Hudson bill. And I'll describe what those 2 sections are. One of them is about electricity supply, where your power is generated, what you're paying for generation of electricity, and where and how it's produced. and that is electricity supply. As I mentioned, every utility customer in New York State has had the ability to take advantage of the marketplace for electricity supply since the late 1990s. So before CCA, because of that marketplace, there were two choices that every customer in New York State, and including members of the town of Clinton before the launch of a CCA program, had available to them. And so this is my menu slide or my map slide for a mall telling you where you were or where you are. So before CCA, members of the town of Clinton had two choices with regard to electricity supply. One, if they made no choice, or they actively chose, they could have the local utility company, Central Hudson, make their supply choice for them. Central Hudson is, in essence, a delivery company. That's what they make money on. But if a customer chooses to or does not make a decision otherwise, Central Hudson also makes the choice about where the supply of electricity comes from. By state law, that is a default choice. And that's why I have a little asterisk after Central Hudson to note that it is the default choice. If you're a customer of Central Hudson and you don't indicate otherwise, for choice number two, to enter into a contract with a third-party energy supplier, energy supply company, or an ESCO, then that is your default choice, is to have the utility make that decision for you on a month-to-month basis. And when they do make that choice, they cannot fix the price, so the supply price from Central Hudson will vary month to month. Anybody, though, can choose the second option, to go with a third-party energy supply company. It does require a contract, and there are two reasons why customers have done this historically. One is to seek better prices for electricity supply than they could get from their local utility company. Second, a number of people have chosen to pursue a contract with a third-party energy supply company to support clean energy. To date, and I have not seen an exception, that decision to enter into an agreement for a cleaner supply of energy costs more than what the utility charges on a month-to-month basis for non-clean supply. So the two goals that we were talking about in terms of public benefit did not go together. So again, one, for the third-party supply choice, you could seek cost savings. Two, you could seek clean energy options, but you could not get the two of them together. To spoil the surprise about what goes in the third box, that CCA will go into that third box very shortly in an upcoming slide, which does bring together those two opportunities. So that's where we were. Now, wonderfully, for those of you who have received a letter in the mail, and every eligible customer, as Central Hudson has designated to be eligible, should have received a letter that was mailed out on April 17th from the town of Clinton, indicating the start of our program. And so this is a snapshot of the letter that people received with the greeting, the first paragraph describing in brief what the program is all about, explaining that it is a community choice aggregation program, and describing in hopefully clear terms what the program is all about. But wonderfully, my role in this program as local program manager is to be here throughout the duration of the program. And as I'll talk about coming up, Clinton has joined to obtain a choice of two electricity rates, one of them being the default choice, which is 100% renewable. But they joined a partnership that 9 other communities in the Hudson Valley have been part of. So Clinton is joining for 13 months of the remaining contract. Wonderfully, my organization is here for the duration to answer questions and to make sure people have an easy experience with the program. And so while we do share this information, we will do more of these public meetings. It's very sad for me that we can't be in person to do this meeting as we typically do, but I do enjoy WebEx, and we're available in multiple ways to answer questions. And so we do hope that this information is clear, but we are here as a resource, with great availability to answer your questions as we go through. So that is what the idea of this partnership is about. But now on upcoming slides, I'm going to dig into some of the details about what this program means. What are the details that were in the letter? what we're talking about, here's my promise slide of a Central Hudson bill to emphasize what we're talking about, what changes because of this program. And as I indicated, this third page of my Central Hudson bill shows that everybody's Central Hudson bill is really two bills in one. I've circled at the top half of this slide of my bill the delivery charges section. And you can see there's multiple line items in the delivery charges section. That is the section of the bill that New York utility companies make money on. Since deregulation went into effect in New York in the late 1990s, when the energy markets were deregulated, the monopoly that some companies had was broken up. They were not allowed to be the generators of electricity, so they couldn't be suppliers. They only could be the deliverers of energy. So in essence, Central Hudson is like FedEx or like UPS. They are delivery companies. They don't make the packages that are delivered. In this case, we're talking about electrons or electricity, but they are there to make sure it gets from where it's made to the customers that are going to use it. That's their customers. They are paid to be reliable delivery companies, which means that they get paid for repair service, all the infrastructure to get electricity from where it's made to their customers. They do the billing. They do, service of questions. That is part of the job of being a reliable delivery company. The lower part of the bill is a supply section of the bill, and that's what we're doing. That's what we're affecting with community choice aggregation. This bill shows what it looks like when somebody is part of the Hudson Valley Community Power Partnership, CCA. There is one line item shown in the supply section of the bill. I did not include here what it looks like when you're not part of the program, but for customers prior to CCA, the supply charges section would have 3 line items in the bill. The same usage, in my case, is 1,116 kilowatt hours. But the program rate that we have available now for Clinton for 100% renewable energy from New York is shown as 6.361 cents per kilowatt hour. Prior to being in the program, again, there would be 3 line items, which would have a market charge, an adjustment charge, and a merchant function charge. Those are the 3 line items that would be in supply. That's how you know you're getting your electricity decision made for you by Central Hudson in that case. But in the program, everything, there's no additional charges. Everything is wrapped up in this one line item, the one fixed rate. That includes the administrative fee that my organization and Jewel, the administrator, it's 8/100ths of a cent is in that price. Everything is there. So what happens when you're in the CCA program, 3 line items in your supply section are replaced by 1 line item, which is all inclusive. What's wonderful, an indication of this slide too, it shows you that logistically nothing changes for you in terms of your bill and your arrangements for paying your bill. The CCA program is included on your Central Hudson bill, so you just continue to pay your Central Hudson bill and reap the benefits of the program. So the one additional thing I'll point out on this slide, that it does not say on the supply charges section that you are part of the Hudson Valley Community Power CCA program. It does not say you're part of the town of Clinton's Community Choice Aggregation or CCA program. By state regulatory requirements, and CCA is a state-enabled program that's under strict regulatory requirements, we are only allowed, or the utility company is only allowed to show the name of the supply company that the partnership chose. And in this case, the name of that company is Direct Energy. And so if you look, so in the bottom circle, you can see the company's name, Direct Energy, as the supplier that was selected by the partnership. And so there's lots of information on this slide, but it is indication of what we're changing here is only the supply decision of this thing. So it also says, very importantly, that we are not replacing Central Hudson at all in this program. Central Hudson stays. We couldn't do it without them. They stay as a delivery company, providing their very important service for allowing this to happen, including the billing. So as promised, our menu of choices has changed. with the launch of community choice aggregation in Clinton. Now, to our first two supply choices, now we have a third supply choice option, and that third box at the bottom of my table is filled by CCA. Importantly, it becomes, though, the default choice for members of our partner communities, meaning Central Hudson gave us the list of folks that they were making a supply decision for, and now all of those people are automatically included as CCA customers unless they choose not to be. So it is an opt-out program. That means that people have to say that they do not want to be part of it unless they choose, they have to make that choice. That is an essential element and a very important aspect of it. But part of that is that to do this by state regulatory requirement, we need to make sure that the choice to not be part of it and to take advantage of either of the two other choices is made very easily for the customers. And so that's what we'll talk about coming up. So what is CCA though? I mentioned that there's three win-win-win scenarios. There's the potential for cost savings, and I will talk about the program rates. What is the cost per kilowatt hour for the program? But I mentioned secondly that there was the ability to promote clean energy in New York State through the program. And on this very busy looking slide, I've put the summary of another New York State program that is targeted, that was structured for New York State cities and towns and villages. It's called the Clean Energy Communities Program. And it is something that they said to every city and town and village, here are 10 strategies that every city and town and village should consider to make smart decisions in terms of reducing costs, reducing expenses in those cities and towns and villages, and to reduce electricity consumption in many of the strategies, and to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The state has very aggressive goals in terms of transitioning our electricity grid to be a cleaner grid, a much more reliable grid, and a grid that produces much less pollution, including greenhouse gases. These 10 strategies are all targeted for that. On the list of the 10 strategies under this Clean Energy Communities program is community choice aggregation. It's number 9 on the list, but this list is not in order of importance or impact. It's wonderful that I've noted several times the manager of this program has said that far and away, community choice aggregation is the most powerful of these 10 actions that a city or town or village could do in terms of meeting those collective benefits of reducing costs, reducing electricity consumption, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So it's very powerful in that way. Happy to answer more questions about this. I did include, and I will share these slides, a hyperlink to more information about the program at the bottom of the slide. But it's wonderful. And I know that Clinton has been looking at a lot of these strategies and has pursued them too. So where is CCA? Is Clinton alone in doing community choice aggregation? Absolutely not. I mentioned that Clinton is joining 9 other communities right here in the Hudson Valley, but on this map of New York State, all those little blue points indicate cities and towns and villages that have enabled, through passing a local law, as Clinton has done, the ability to explore CCA. There's well over 100 points on that map. So there's more than 100 cities and towns and villages in New York State that have passed local laws to allow them to explore CCA. Not all of them have set up and launched a CCA like Clinton has yet, but it is an indication just how significant and how much interest there is in CCA and how it can deliver on these collective goals that it's set to address. So let's talk a little bit in terms of what is CCA about some other programs that are available or that have been launched in the state. I mentioned that CCA was enabled in New York State in 2016, in April of 2016, to be more specific. The pilot program was launched in Westchester County in May of 2016. It was concurrent efforts by folks in Westchester were instrumental in getting this policy enabled in the state. So they were ready to launch pretty quickly after it was finally enabled by the Public Service Commission in New York State. They originally launched in 2016 with 20 communities. And it was at the time that they launched the largest clean energy buy in New York State. 19 of the 20 communities chose a clean energy, 100% clean energy electricity source for the program when they launched. The program went very well. They signed a 2-year contract for the rate, the 100% clean energy, and another choice that was more of a standard mix that was not 100% clean energy. But majority of all of the participants in the program, over 100,000 counts, were in the 100% clean energy choice. It was more than 90% of the participants, and still, compared to the non-clean energy utility rate, over about a 2.5-year period, including the first full 2 years of that program, they saved a collective $15 million while also only paying for clean energy. The program went so well that they did it again. They went through the whole process again, which is required by state regulation, to launch the program again in the original 20 communities. When they did it again in 2018, 7 more communities joined. 24 of them chose 100% clean energy as the default choice for the members of those communities. And it has been launched now, and there's more than 115,000 participants are part of that CCA program. That program is called the Westchester Power Program in Westchester. The program that Clinton has joined underneath the dotted line is the Hudson Valley Community Power Partnership, and we were the second community choice aggregation program to launch in the state. It launched in the middle of last year, in July of 2019. We launched originally with 6 communities, and I have the list of communities on an upcoming slide so you can see who all the partners are. And it is following on an extra added addendum to the community choice aggregation program. It was every one of our communities has chosen 100% in-state renewable energy as a default. When Westchester launched in 2016, it was not all New York State energy, but it is a requirement now that community choice aggregation programs provide access to only 100% clean energy that's connected to the New York State grid. So it brings the benefits even more close to home through this requirement. It's very powerful in terms of the economic development benefits and the health benefits that are associated with the support of renewable energy generation projects. So it's very powerful. So that was my overview on what community choice aggregation is. I'll just stop for a second and I'll call out to Roberto to see if there's any clarifying questions that I should answer at this point in time. I'm not going to take a look at the chat window yet, but Roberto, please do let me know if there's anything that I can do in terms of answering a question. I know you've been doing a great job of responding to questions in the chat window.
Yeah, sure, I can add one.
Great.
And this is one that I wasn't aware of. Is there a reason, or what is the reason why the opt-down option from the renewable to the standard supply mix is not described on the opt-out card or apparently in the community letter? I haven't reviewed the community letter recently, so I don't know if it's in there somewhere and it's just hard to find. Do you know why that is?
Supply card, which is one of the pieces of material that's included in the mailing for the program launch. And the question was, and as I'll show you on a slide coming up, that there are 2 choices for rates, and that people can choose at any time between the 2 rates. As a matter of fact, I'm going to wait to address that question because I know I do address it on a slide coming up. But we'll talk about the rates first, which is one of the first things that we do get into with the Hudson Valley Community Power Program description. So this is what I call the logos slide, but it's really the partners slide. And it emphasizes that Hudson Valley Community Power is a partnership. It's not an organization. It is the collection, the partners of all the logos in the lower left hand of the slide. It includes the first line on the lower left, the community partners. And I can just pop this up really quickly and show you these are the partner communities, which now includes the town of Clinton. But the partners, the other Hudson Valley communities are the city of Beacon, the city of Poughkeepsie, the town of Clinton, the town of Fishkill, the town of Marbletown, the town of New Paltz, the town of Phillipstown, the town of Red Hook, the village of Cold Spring, and the village of New Paltz. So those are the logos that are shown in the lower left under community partners to represent all of those communities. The administrator for the program is Jewel Community Power. That is a state-approved administrator who filed an implementation plan with the state to be an administrator of CCA, and they were selected. Here are the logo in the lowest left. Our organization, Hudson Valley Energy, which is a local program manager, is shown to the right of Jewel. And then, as I mentioned previously, all of these partners, Jewel, with all the community partners, selected through a request for proposal process a supplier who had to meet the requirements that all of these communities wanted in terms of those three win-win-win scenarios. A price for 100% renewable energy, and a second option that was better than the utility average when the request for proposals was issued, that provided one package inclusive that was 100% clean energy, and that was very protective of consumers, had no restrictions on consumers, no contract for any of the members of these communities. So the one that we selected was Direct Energy. And let me just say, please, too, if you could mute yourself if you're not speaking. I hear a little bit of background noise, so please do mute yourself if you're not speaking at the moment. Thank you. The last logo that I include in the lower left is Central Hudson. They are not entered into the contract, the arrangement for this program, but we couldn't do it without them. And so just really to emphasize again that this does not displace Central Hudson at all, does not even impact their business model. They don't lose money because of this program. What is also shown on the slide in the lower right is the link to the HudsonValleyCommunityPower.com website, the partnership website, which if you haven't been there, I do encourage you to go there. There's lots of very good information to describe the program, including much more detailed frequently asked questions sections on both CCA, non-community choice aggregation, and community solar, which I'll talk about towards the end of the presentation. So very good resources to be checked. And there's multiple ways that we do communicate information out, which we will continue to do throughout the life of the program. Again, my role in this program is to do this education and outreach and be there to answer questions and support in the communities. And there's numerous ways that we will continue to do that. So those are the partners in the program, and that is the partnership program name. And those, again, are the names listed out. But what is the details? What is the kind of the nuts and bolts here of how this program is operating? And this is a snapshot from the letters that were sent out to eligible customers in the town of Clinton. And it describes the Hudson Valley Community Power rates in this table. And there's an indication in the text at the top that through this partnership, basically through this buying club, we were able to secure fixed rates for electricity supply that was available to all of the energy supply companies in the state to bid on. And Direct Energy was selected, and that the program rates will be put onto people's utility bills if you do not opt out of the program starting about June 1st, depending on your meter read date. And that for Clinton, it's a 13-month program, which goes through June of 2021. And we can talk about what is the potential for what happens after 13 months. Well, to speak to it quickly, after 13 months, unless the town of Clinton decides to do this all again, everyone automatically, without any action, reverts back to having Central Hudson make their energy supply choice for them again, with no action. And that's part of the consumer protection of this, is that people are not put into something where they have to keep an eye on it or something strange could happen. It's the idea that they're being moved into a program, given a membership to a program that will bring benefit, and when it ends, they automatically go back to the way it was before, unless the communities, as happened in Westchester, decide to do it again. And it can be done seamlessly, but it has to be done in a very public way that meets all the regulatory requirements, including all of this outreach that we do for the program. All right, so now digging into the rates that we achieved for the program and understanding what this table shows. So these are the rates for the supply section of the utility bill, shown in dollars per kilowatt hour. So those numbers down below are actually cents with lots of decimals after them. The rate class shows that this is a program that's structured for residential and small commercial, and they're both included as long as they meet the appropriate rate class. The 24-month Central Hudson rate, as shown by the footnote, the double asterisk, this was the average that was the necessary benchmark to beat for the program rates that we have obtained. And the two program rates that we have are shown in the right two columns. The benchmark, that 24-month Central Hudson rate, to explain what it is 6.485 cents per kilowatt hours. So just a little bit under 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour. That was the 24-month rate between February of 2018 to January of 2020. Two program rates that we have available are a standard fixed rate, which standard means it mirrors in terms of source what the utility company, Central Hudson in this case, obtains. The standard rate is only a small portion has renewable energy sourcing in it. There is fossil, there is nuclear in that. As opposed to the last column, the 100% renewable fixed rate, which is 6.361 cents per kilowatt hour. And that is 100% either solar, wind, or certified hydropower from New York State. And so that is not only a very good fixed rate for the 13-month period for Clinton, it is the default choice that Clinton and all the other 9 communities that are in the Hudson Valley Community Power Program chose to be the default. Meaning, for somebody who stays in the program and does not choose otherwise, that is the rate that they will be given on their utility bill. But this is a community choice aggregation program, choice being the second word. People always have a choice in terms of being in the program to get out at any time with no penalty, or to switch their rate. And I'll talk about that in an upcoming slide. So performance, how are these program rates doing compared to Central Hudson's prices? And I mentioned that Central Hudson rates do vary from month to month. So what I show on this very busy looking slide is that benchmark rate, that 24-month benchmark rate is shown by a red arrow on my graph. So on the left side of this graph are dollars per kilowatt hour. And so our 6.485 cent benchmark is shown where that red arrow is. So it's 6.485 cents per kilowatt hour, or $0.06485 per kilowatt hour. So that was the benchmark that that was the program rates had to beat. And the green line, the straight green line, is the 100% renewable fixed rate. It is that rate every month, and it's shown that's right below that benchmark. And then our standard rate, which is slightly less than the 100% renewable fixed rate, is shown as a black line beneath the green line. Both rates below the benchmark. The closeness of those two lines are very revealing. It indicates the fact that the green line is so close to the black line. What you should take away from that is that that's the power of the program, that we are able to obtain a very, very good and fixed, very certain rate for renewable electricity that is so close to what is the non-clean energy price. It's showing that you can get that win-win scenario where there's been the expectation. It is slightly more expensive than the standard rate, but only slightly more. So the significant, most bang for the buck that you get from this program is by being in the 100% renewable fixed rate option. The benchmark comparison, to give a quantification of the benefit, are we talking huge savings here? Are we talking the ability to go on vacations when people could travel again, or to buy a second home? No, I mean, we're talking modest savings, but it is this idea of the win-win scenario. The benchmark comparison, comparing the 100% renewable rates to that benchmark rate, For the average household in the Hudson Valley, it will mean probably about a $30 to $50 per year savings, depending on usage per year. So 30 to 50 days. It's not a significant amount of money for even an expensive dinner out, but it is that win-win scenario that's so important. As an indication of that too, the yellow line that's shown at 7.5 cents or 0.0750 cents, that is something that I calculated looking at other energy supply companies available in New York State that offered a 100% clean energy supply option. The best pretty much that somebody could do is at 7.5 cents, and typically much more expensive than that. So the difference between the yellow line and the green line, again, speaks to the power of this program in terms of its ability to deliver the win-win scenario. So that is what an individual customer could anticipate shopping in the marketplace. But again, the yellow line comes with a number of it comes with a contract, which members of participating communities that are doing CCA have no contract. They have no restrictions. They can opt out at any time. They can change their rate at any time. That is part of the consumer protection. Those contract requirements can be very troublesome with some of the energy supply companies, that including early exit fees, minimum participation requirements, and often what has been one of the challenges that those third-party supply companies have done is they enter you into a fixed rate program, which after a certain period turns variable. Transparent aspect of community choice aggregation is that does not happen. This is a fixed rate program for a fixed period of time. It can be repeated, but it can't just get away from somebody without their knowledge. This is about protecting consumers and delivering the benefits of clean and inexpensive 100% renewable energy. The last thing to talk about on this busy slide is that bouncy line, that blue line, that dips and then goes back up and then does rise above the green line. That is the Central Hudson rate since we launched the program with the 6 original communities. It shows that we launched in about July of last year with 6 communities. 3 joined at the end of 2019, the town of New Paltz, village of New Paltz and Red Hook. And they joined after a very odd fall when electricity prices took an unexpected dip for a number of reasons, including a very mild summer and an unexpected dip in gas supply markets. But the program, that the supply rates from Central Hudson have come up, and you can see the trend started at about October to the point where they were above our standard fixed rate starting in January, and right about at our 100% renewable and in their most recently published rate, are both of our program rates are below Central Hudson's rates. We're not sure, given the world situation, what the market would do, but you can see there's a clear indication that this was trending back up as a correction to what had happened in the fall of 2019. But it does importantly indicate that this is, we do say there's a potential for cost savings, and we do anticipate over the life of the contract, 2 years for the original 6 communities that were part of the partnership, and even for the 13 months that Clinton will be part of this program, we do anticipate the win-win scenario that people, even in the 100% renewable rate, will save money while also only paying for and supporting clean energy from New York State. But it's not guaranteed. That line dipping below does show, and we are watching carefully what's happening in the market, but there is the potential that Central Hudson's rates can go below our program rates. The wonderful corrective for that, though, is the ability for anyone to opt out of the program at any time. And just as I'm doing now, we'll continue to communicate about how our program is performing. So those are some details about the generic nature of the Hudson Valley Community Power Partner program. But now specifically for Clinton, what does it look like for Clinton? What are the next steps for folks who are now just joining the program? Where we are in Clinton. As you saw on the date of the letter that I included the snapshot above, the letters were sent out to eligible customers on the 17th of April. I have bolded the term eligible customers to remind myself to say that there are customers who are not considered eligible. And the biggest group of those customers are those customers who already have a contract with a third-party energy supply company. So we did not kick anybody out of their existing arrangements with an energy supply company to be part of our program. So Central Hudson did not send over those customers' accounts information to the supplier to be part of our program. Many of them may want to join our program because we likely are offering competitive rates and likely better rates than what they're getting, particularly if they're in a contract with a company offering clean energy. Anybody can opt into our program at any time. And our suggestion to those customers is to look at their program, make sure there's no prohibitive fees, end it, contact their supplier and end it, and then contact us to opt into the program. And our information for opting in is coming up too, but you can contact us by phone or by email to opt into the program, or use the image at the bottom as a snapshot from the partnership website, where there is a form that people can use to change their rate option to opt out or opt into the program. So we try to make as many options, very easy options for navigating this program as we can. There will be also a mailing that I'll talk about later that should be, we hope to go out to every community member in Clinton, talking about CCA and community solar, which will hopefully make everyone aware, including those quote unquote ineligible customers, about the program opportunity. But since the letters were sent out on the 17th, that started the clock on an opt-out period, which runs through May 15th. The opt-out period is a regulatory requirement period where people can get out of the program to have nothing change. Anybody can get out of our program at any time, at any cost, but it's a reserved 30-day period just so that people don't ever get switched away from having Central Hudson make their supply choice for them if they don't want to. And so we are being contacted by, and people are sending in mailers, or people are using the form themselves to opt out of the program if they don't want to be participants in it. As a reminder, the fourth line down, everyone that is in the program has their default choice is for 100% New York State renewable energy. That's part of the requirements of the program. And if you stay in the program, you will start to see the rate put on your Central Hudson bill beginning in June. And people will see that for the bill that they receive in July. People receive their June bill in July. So that's where we are. If you do not want to opt out, if you do not want to participate in the program, if you want to opt out, there are 3 options that are described in the letter. And this snapshot in the box is taken directly from the letter that was sent to people. And so the 3 options that are available to people are: 1, to return the enclosed opt-out reply card. And I'll put that image up in a second of what the reply card looks like, and we'll talk about it. Second, any one of these choices is sufficient. Second, people can call us at our program number, 845-859-9099, and they can give us the necessary information, which is included on the supply card, or they can give us the information just from their Central Hudson bill, and that would be sufficient. And finally, people can do it themselves through the partnership website, hudsonvalleycommunitypower.com, and submit their information through an enrollment/change form. That's the name of it. That's found under CCA in the navigation bar. So by mailing in the card during the opt-out period, by calling us, or by doing the web form, or by seeing us in person, and that used to be not an unusual thing, where we hold office hours in town and people could just give us their information directly. So it's kind of a fourth option. Allow me to say too, please, if you could mute yourself. I'm hearing a little bit of background, I think dinner noise in the background. So if you could please mute yourself, that'd be great. What I've just popped up on our slide here is an example of an opt-out reply card. This is what that is included in the mailing. And it's about the third of a size of a sheet of paper. And it shows the town of Clinton seal, and it has the service address information. And I've whited out this because it was for a specific customer. And it includes in the upper right an enrollment account number, which is not your Central Hudson account number, intentionally. Consumer protection is very important to this, and part of this is data protection. And so during this opt-out period, there is no exchange of customer account information. So that's why a dummy number is used, particularly in the mailings, so that people's Central Hudson account numbers, which people should protect, just as they do their social security number and other important information. So we use an enrollment account number, which is basically a dummy number that is matched by the utility company with their account number during the opt-out period. But the information on this card is what is needed to opt out of the program. It has the name of the customer, the service address, and the that enrollment number. But again, if you don't have this card, you can use your Central Hudson account number, which again, protect it. Make sure you're talking to one of us or somebody you trust when you convey that information, but that can be used to opt out of the program. To change the rates, and this was the question we had earlier about, well, what happens if we want to change rates? The question was, this opt-out reply card, which I've gone back to show you, is something people can send in to opt out of the program. But somebody said, how come you can't change your rate using this supply card? We didn't include a box to say, I want to be in the program, but I want to choose the non-default rate. In the case of Clinton, the non-default rate is the standard rate. It is just the protocol by state requirement that the opt-out reply card only focus on opting out for relative simplicity. The other options remain available, and these are the options for people who want to change their supply rates. I'll show it on the next slide. But again, the supply options are 100% renewable, which is the default. Again, it's 100% renewable from New York State by solar, hydro, or wind. And then the standard option is described there, which is electricity. That's a mixture of fossil fuel, nuclear, and some renewable. To change rates, these are the two options. You can call us and give us your information. And we, in essence, would use the same form that's available on the website to submit that information. So call us and give us that information, your Central Hudson account information, or the information from the opt-out reply card, preferably, or enter that information yourself at this enrollment change form that's on the HudsonValleyCommunityPower.com website. Again, and I put back on the rate table to emphasize the two numbers shown in the right side of this table that I've circled are the program rates. The standard fixed rate is 6.078 cents per kilowatt hour. The 100% renewable, 6.361 cents per kilowatt hour. So that is my overview of the specifics of the program. And now this is my review, commonly asked questions or frequently asked questions. And I'll just kind of run through these as a reminder, and then I'll stop for questions before we move on to talking about community solar to see if there's any questions I can answer. But the first and very common question we get asked is, does this replace my utility company? And the answer to that is no. This does not replace Central Hudson. And as a matter of fact, for CCA, for community choice aggregation with the program rates, all of this is done through the utility bill. It's just a line item change on that bill. There is an asterisk at the end of that that you'll see coming up down below where I reference community solar, which is something different. So why are you doing this? How can you do this? It is because it is allowed by the state as a regulatory process, because it is a public benefit for the three goals that we talked about, the concurrent ability to save money while also promoting renewable energy, while also protecting consumers in a way that's very transparent, very limited, very protective of their rights. Will community choice aggregation save me money? Based on the difference between the benchmark and the program rates that we obtained from the supplier that we selected, it is, we anticipate will be a 5 to 10% savings on the supply price. But as we saw from the bouncy line on my very detailed charts, it's not guaranteed. You know, that price from the Central Hudson can go lower than our program rate. So it's not guaranteed, but we do anticipate that it will work out. And we do hope that the trends that we saw on the end of that chart do hold, and that Central Hudson's rates, as we anticipated, based on that benchmark, will be above our program rates. Am I locked into this for, well, I left 2 years on here, but this would be for Clinton, 13 months, you know, for 13 months of the program. No, no one is ever locked into this program. People can exit freely at any time. This is really like a public benefit, like a municipal tennis court or a public swimming, where you're given a membership. You do not have to swim. You do not have to play tennis. You can give back your membership. And you can actually always come back to the program too if you do opt out. So what happens after the, well, in this case, 13 months of the program? Does the rate go crazy? This is a question based on people's experience with individual energy supply companies where they've had programs that are fixed and then it goes crazy. No, after the contract ends, everyone goes back to the utility, but it can repeat. The towns can repeat the program. Where does the energy come from? I mentioned that for CCA, the renewable energy has to come from New York State. That's by state requirement, which is wonderful in terms of the regional benefits. For community solar, there's something separate. It is even more of a local benefit. And I will start to talk about community solar in a bit. But emphasizing that there are benefits with it that are even guaranteed savings associated with it. But it is something that is more local benefits. Let me stop for a second and call on Roberto for a second to see if there's any questions that I could answer before we move on and talk about community solar, just about CCA. All right, not hearing that there's anything. I was looking like Roberto's doing a great job of answering questions here. All right, again, I'm gonna move on here to talk about community solar, including information that was shared in the mailing for the program. And again, so while CCA is a program that's focused on accessing supply from New York State, community solar is an added benefit that has a requirement that you're supporting solar generated in Central Hudson territory, right? Even more local in its benefit. And so it is something that is local and has a guaranteed savings based on the companies that are working with in this program. And the last question I have on here, does this work with my existing solar system? CCA does work if you have a solar system on your house. This is just changing the supply rate on your bill or your business, but but community solar does not. And I'll reemphasize that again. So if you have a solar PV system on your home or business or on your land at the service address, CCA absolutely works with that, but community solar, you cannot do community solar. So this is the last thing I want to talk about, CCA and community solar. You did see in the mailing, for those who received the mailing, a one-page flyer, and these are snapshots from that flyer. It was from the town of Clinton, and it included a picture of a town supervisor and a summary about what community solar is, and that it is something that works with community choice aggregation, or CCA, that they do work together to reduce electricity costs and carbon emissions, and that it supports local renewable energy, that you do need to actively enroll. CCA is a program that is automatic, that you have to opt out of. Community solar is something you have to opt into. You have to actively enroll in it. It does not require rooftop panels, and there's no sign up or cancellation fees. It is really just structured to be something where you subscribe, you support a local project, and for doing so, you receive a monetary credit on your utility bill for being a subscriber to community solar. So it delivers the cost benefits of solar without having to put solar structures on your home or business. And again, it still works in Central Hudson, and there is an added benefit of doing it through our partnership in terms of an additional fund being built for the town of Clinton to do sustainability projects. And I'll talk a little bit more about that, including what's been done in some other communities in our partnership. But in brief, how community solar works. I mentioned earlier above that New York State has ambitious goals for what it's trying to achieve in terms of transforming the grid and moving us towards clean energy. They also want to do this in a way that does not lead to more cost for the communities in the state, for residents of New York State. Community solar is a strategy like CCA that can do that, that can deliver that win-win scenario. In the case of community solar, you do not, again, put solar on your house or business. There is a field of solar, which a developer of that field of solar has a requirement to receive state support for creating this program. The requirement is, rather than many fields of solar that had been created previous years, including down here on a closed landfill in the city of Beacon, wherein all the electricity was in essence sold to the utility company. So all the power generated by that field of solar shown by number 1 went pretty much to number 2, to the utility's grid. And the utility company was the only customer. For community solar, the developer has to get subscribers for each and every panel that is in that field, an individual homeowner or an individual small business owner. That requirement brings the benefit to the small businesses and the homeowners in terms of a monetary credit that is basically the developer sharing the benefit of establishing this project with those subscribers. It does not directly connect anybody to this power. Without this, and even when people do put solar on their homes and businesses, those solar panels actually feed the grid as well. So these solar panels feed the grid, as do the projects we talked about for CCA, but they do prevent the need for any infrastructure changes on anybody's home. So that has that wonderful benefit of delivering a monetary benefit without having to do any kind of structural change to anyone's home or business. Then the result for the benefit of the program is that people receive that shared benefit, that shared monetary credit that the developer gets. In this case, many developers working in our area, and there's many companies doing this, they structure it to be a 10% reduction on your entire electricity bill. So it's something that is just almost, it's a no-brainer. One of the challenges is that there's not an unlimited amount of this. It's one of the reasons that people have to opt into the program. And very importantly, to emphasize this point again, if you do have solar on your house, or your business, you can do CCA, but you cannot do community solar because that is considered double dipping. The state has supported community solar as a way to bring the benefit of renewable electricity generation to customers who haven't or can't put solar on their home or business, which can be a very wonderful monetary benefit as well. All right, so to differentiate what we've been talking about before with CCA with this solar option, I've brought in a second menu and a second table of menu options where the same instruction applies, where you can only, this is like again, like a restaurant menu with an appetizer and an entree. You can only select one from each column. You are, I hope, familiar to some degree with the electricity supply table on the left, our yellow table, where your electricity supply choices as a member of a CCA community are 1, to have Central Hudson make your electricity supply choice for you, or 2, to have a third-party supply company make your choice for you, or 3, have CCA, be a member of the CCA, where the choice made by the partner communities is your choice for electricity supply. And again, the asterisk is there because that is the default choice for a CCA community. Electricity supply, that is where you're paying through your utility bill for power generation for your home or business, and it has to come from New York State. It is separate from the solar choice that people make. The 3 solar choices in the solar menu are, from a customer's perspective, are 1, do nothing about solar. If somebody does not have solar on their home or business, they do not have to put it on their home or business. They do not have to be a community solar member. They can stay where they are. Secondly, though, they can put solar on their home or business. So that's choice B in the solar table. But if they want to do something about solar, they don't want to do option A, they don't want to put it on their home or business, option B, they can do community solar. You can choose a choice from each of these tables, each of these options, and they mix and match. So I want to emphasize, and I'll do this with a slide coming up too, you do not have to do CCA and community solar. To do community solar, you do not have to do CCA. You can do any of these choices, mix or match. So just to make sure there's clear understanding that they're independent choices. To emphasize the differences and the similarities, again, CCA was something that offers a cost-saving opportunity on the supply rate through a low fixed rate for supply, and it's 100%, in the case of our default, 100% clean energy from New York State. It offers consumer protection in terms of that there's no contract for the members of CCA communities. Community solar overlaps the CCA in the terms of our program in the sense of there's significant aspects of consumer protection. For community solar, you do need to enter into a contract, but there's no bad contracts. These have been vetted to not have hidden fees, and they do not have even minimum participations. Somebody can get out of these contracts at any time if they choose to. So this is another way that we're really trying to put the consumer first to be able to make these choices in a way that they feel very confident and they don't feel restricted. As opposed to CCA, community solar brings a benefit, allows somebody to also support 100% local clean energy, right from the utility territory. And as opposed to the savings opportunity of CCA, community solar brings the added benefit or an added benefit of being a guaranteed savings, structured to be 10% off the utility bill. And from a community's perspective, for our partner communities, the reasons they support this, an additional reason they support this, is that Jewel, the administrator of the program, has decided to bring an additional benefit to the communities by developing a sustainability fund for every enrollment that is created through this program. $50 is put into a pool to be used by the communities to support sustainability projects. So really speaking to the intent and mindset that the program has for bringing numerous benefits to really move the state forward, to move all these communities forward in terms of becoming more sustainable, more clean energy, more efficient communities. So another comparison slide to understand the differences and even to put some dollars and cents to understanding what CCA represents and what community solar represents, and to emphasize that you do not have to do both. You do not have to do either. So what I show here on this slide is 4 example bills for 1 month, 4 different versions of a bill for 1 month. The bill on the left is a utility bill for somebody with no programs. They're not in CCA, they're not in community solar. You remember that the utility bill from that slide above it's 2 bills in one. There's a delivery charges section and a supply charges section. And for most customers in the States, the delivery charges section tends to be more than their supply charges. So for simplicity purposes, I just put a hypothetical number of $60 for delivery charge, $40 for supply charge, such that the total bill is $100. With the 7% benefit that our program, that Hudson Valley Community Power has achieved through the rate compared to the benchmark for supply charge, the second bill shows what it would be if you were in the CCA program, where the delivery charge is the same, but there's a 7% benefit for the supply charge, such that the bill is $97.20, less than the $100. So it's about $2.80 less than the no-bill program for this month. The third option is you're in community solar, but you're not in CCA. In this case, the same $60 for delivery, $40 for supply, but in this month, based on the average month for being a subscriber, your credit is 10% off of the bill, so that your total bill is $90. The last shows that you can reap a benefit by being in both programs together, where you combine the benefits in the second scenario, where you have the 7% savings on supply charge with the 10% credit from the third scenario for the least expensive bill, where the combination is $87.20. So it is something that is an additive benefit, and it's again, if people choose to do it, when there's availability, it's something that can be very beneficial. So because it is such a good program, vetted by the partnership, the communities, including Clinton, and when wonderfully the supervisor decided to support the program. So that's why we shared information and hopefully did not confuse people by adding in information about community solar into the mailing. And we will continue to do community outreach. Anticipate in probably about 6 weeks that, if there's, if we agree to do so, that there'll be another mailing to further explain the program. And as I mentioned at the top, this mailing will likely go to everyone in the community so that they understand what CCA is, even if they already have a third-party supply company, and understand how community solar can work with this. And importantly, just as CCA does not remove anybody from their current supply contracts, if somebody in Clinton already has a contract for community solar, they've probably made a wonderful choice, and we don't displace that at all. So CCA works with existing community solar arrangements, and people do not have to end their community solar arrangement to do this one, because if it's a good arrangement, they're probably doing wonderful as it is. But we will do community outreach, and here's an example of what we did in Beacon, where this flyer on the right was created with the mayor of Beacon last year. And here's an example, not intent to be read, but just showing the letter that was sent out by the mayor to every resident in the city of Beacon, describing the program, drawing distinctions between the two of them, but encouraging people to look at this and to not be, concerned that this is just another, advertisement out there to encourage people to do things. That this is something that is based on the states and the towns or the cities' recognition that this is beneficial for its citizens. This is a slide showing, and we're right near the end here, but this is a table showing the benefits, the sustainability funds that were accumulated in some of our partner communities, and how, in a few cases, how those funds are going to be used. The city of Beacon, as of March of 2020, raised $10,000, $10,150, and they're giving that money to the Beacon City School District to do sustainability work in the schools, including energy efficiency projects and curriculum development around sustainability. The village of Cold Spring, which is within the town of Phillipstown, they're combining their funds, which are up over $9,000, to do a refrigerant management program. And Roberto, my team member here, is a climate smart community coordinator for Phillipstown, and is quite knowledgeable about the work that's being done for that. And then it shows that in Marbletown, they've designated their funds to a local walk and bike project. That's Marbletown over in Ulster. And then Geneva, which was where Jewel first initiated this, they raised $25,000. And they gave that money, decided to dedicate that money to a watershed project to protect Seneca Lake. So an indication of how these project funds can be used. And just really speaking to the fact that there really is an effort to create symbiotic opportunities for these communities. If somebody wants to subscribe to Community Solar, here's what you'll need and need to know. In brief, you'll need your Central Hudson account information. You will need the enrollment website, because the company that we're working with right now does require you to set up an account that's managed electronically. So you will need an email address. And when you set it up, you do need to set up an automatic payment method, a credit card or a bank account, when you do set this thing up. And finally, the thing you need to be aware of, for the time being, for the remainder of the year, as opposed to CCA, where all of the logistical arrangements of being a member of a CCA are done through the CCA program, to be a subscriber to Community Solar, at least for the remainder of the year, requires a two-bill situation, where you do get a credit on your Central Hudson bill, which will be a significant credit based on the amount of electricity generated by your portion of the solar field to which you subscribe. But then for the remainder of this year at least, you'll get a second bill from the solar developer, the owner of that solar field, which would be 90% of your utility bill charge of that credit, thus resulting in a 10% credit on your utility bill. That I keep saying for the remainder of the year, because a wonderful update is that the state said to the utility companies that they had to do a consolidated billing approach, which we think will go into effect in 2021, meaning everything, all these two program opportunities will all be done through the utility bill. If you have questions about this, our number is here again. Here is our information email, info@hudsonvalleycommunitypower.com, and we're there to help you through this process or to answer questions about it. But again, the HudsonValleyCommunityPower.com website also has wonderful information for you. And with that, I thank you all for your patience in going through this program. It took a little longer than I thought I might, but here's my contact information and Glenn's, and again, our program hotline and the links to our program websites. And now I do encourage folks to unmute yourselves and to ask questions, and let me answer your questions for you while I cruise through the chat window to see if there's any questions that I can answer. Are there any questions? Ray, did you want to come back in and
Yes,
help
I
us
have
answer
several questions and comments that I want to alert the community to. The one question is, say a person's in the solar community program, sells his house, does the new person automatically come into that program, or do they have to register to get into the program?
That's great. It's about community solar you're asking about, Ray?
Yes.
With community solar, the wonderful thing, the companies that we work with, and there's different models, there's lots of companies out there, but the companies that we work with, we look for a very simple consumer protective approach. And so for the companies, and there's now 2 that we've worked with, the arrangement is it's tied to the person and their consumption. It's not tied to the house. So if they move and they stay within Central Hudson territory, they take their community solar subscription with them to the new place they go to. So it makes it relatively simple to sell the house, which has been a challenge for people who have lease arrangements or actually have solar panels on the house. So this is relatively clean. It stays with the customer. If the customer moves out of Central Hudson territory, by the contracts of both the companies we've worked with, it ends the contract. So they move out, they don't have to worry about it. But it's something to be aware of. If somebody's considering another community solar option, that's a very good question to ask.
Okay, and here's a comment I have, which many people probably forgot, but about 3 years ago in the fall, not fall, well, say December, January, February, the electric bills doubled and almost tripled. It really hit the town budget, which drew attention to it to me. Now, and that cost was due to the high use of the gas, propane and natural gas volumes out in the Midwest for heating, because that's where they use it a lot. That caused the price per gallon or whatever the unit is to go up double, which then affected the electric company. So, you know, you're protected by going with a CCA to those kind of perturbations. Who knows when it'll happen again, but it was a big hit, you know. I just draw attention to it. It doesn't happen every year, but who knows when. So it's just a comment of the one of the benefits for this kind of program. The other benefit is in this community solar. The town's working on doing a climate smart community program. We've been accumulating through the CAC all kinds of data that need to go into it. This is the final one, which gave us enough points, I think, if they're accepted by Albany. We're waiting for Albany to tell us whether they accept it or not, which will give us future New York State grants to do various projects, maybe solar panels, maybe different lighting or whatever, you know. I don't know the detail of that part of it. So there's, you know, another extra benefit by just joining the climate smart community that's helpful to the whole community. So, you know, it could be new lighting on a rec park, who knows? Whatever comes up depending on the dollars and what the grants are worth. So I just wanted to make those 3 comments so people in town were aware of them.
That's great, and that reminds me too, also of the you know, the way the funds were decided on, how to spend the funds in the other communities was a community decision. Conservation advisory committees, climate smart community task force decided, and a number of the communities how to spend it. But in Beacon, it's a public voting process, so kind of wonderful way to engage folks to get excited about a project. Really good information.
So this is Michael Witten. I just wanted to jump in to clarify something that Ray said. He's talking about the Clean Energy Communities grants, and we have done benchmarking. We've sent our building inspector to the energy code enforcement training, and we have a unified solar permit in place. And so this would be the 4th requirement for us to qualify for Clean Energy Community grants. And we are also enrolled in the community, in climate smart communities, but we are still working towards certification on that.
It's a great time to be part of that program too, because they're just about to relaunch it again and refund it too. So it's really excellent timing to be in the Clean Energy Communities program. Thank you, Michael. So I have a question here. Somebody asked, for those of us with solar, our billing cycle remains every 2 months, correct? Correct. An excellent question to emphasize that whatever billing arrangements customers have with Central Hudson remains unaffected, including when meters are read. Central Hudson typically does a 2-month reading where they estimate 1 month and they actually read it every other month. But very importantly, for people with budget billing, if somebody has a budget billing arrangement wherein there's an analysis and they pay the same amount every month, and then there's a correction at the end of the year, CCA does not affect that. For community solar, though, it's a little funny. Central Hudson's a little odd about that. And there is a way that budget billing could work with community solar, where you're getting the significant 10% monetary credit, in essence, on your utility bill. But it's a little strange, and many customers, and we've been advised that it might be better to end a budget billing arrangement to take advantage of community solar. But if somebody has more questions about that, I definitely encourage them to contact us. But basically the same applies for people with solar on their homes. If they have solar on their homes or business and they want to be part of the CCA program, it's been a common question. As I mentioned, it does work, but they ask specifically, does it affect the rate at which they get paid for the electricity that they overgenerate? And our CCA program rates do not affect that arrangement. Existing arrangements are not affected by being in the CCA program. I'm taking a look. Any other questions? So I look at some other questions here.
This is Mike Witten again. As a follow-up to what Ray asked, because he asked about new homeowners with community solar, if it would roll over to them. How does it work with new homeowners with community choice aggregation? Are they automatically enrolled, or do they all get a letter like we've all gotten?
That. Yeah, that was a perfect opportunity to talk about that too. So somebody has an account with at the house that they're in. Let's talk about a couple of scenarios. They sell the house. They end their Central Hudson account when they sell the house, as people typically do, to if they're moving within Central Hudson territory, they have to set up a new account at the new house. When they end the account with Central Hudson as a CCA customer, that ends their enrollment in CCA. So they don't have to worry about it. Now, that customer or somebody moving into the house, your question pointed to your question, a new customer coming in, they would have to contact us to become a member of the CCA. But there are quarterly periods when people are automatically enrolled in the program. Okay, but it depends on Central Hudson, and we're still verifying that they've been doing this. I think it has been working out in this way, that they have basically a quarterly rollover for new customers within CCA communities, where they're automatically sent a letter saying that this is an option. They're going to be rolled into it, but they're given the option to not if they don't want to. So it's a little bit of both. That sometimes it's better to be proactive if there's interest and there's knowledge about the ability to be in CCA, but there is an automatic way for household businesses within these participating communities to be automatically included. I see. There was a question about having solar and the rate that people get paid for overgeneration, and I did answer that question. I'm looking. Roberto's answered a couple of questions. Has anyone entered a question to the chat window that has not had it answered yet?
Jeff, can you hear me at all? This is Roberto.
Yes. Yep.
Do you want me to just, because I've been reviewing the chat window, do you want me to just pass on the questions that I didn't have an answer for?
That would be great. Yeah, I was just looking at that, so that'd be great. So yeah, please do.
Well, so the first one that jumped out was an explanation for how come the opt-down option from renewable to standard mix is not explained on the opt-out card, and why in the community letter the directions for doing so aren't outlined.
Second question first. I do think that it is explained in the FAQ that's attached for how you can change your rate option. It is in the FAQ. I'm pretty sure, but it's not in the letter. You know, we were seeking that mix of informational without being overwhelming in the materials we sent out. But that's why we have this backup of outreach and the websites as well to provide additional information. And any questions people have, please do contact us. But I did add to the first question about not the inability to change the rate choice on the opt-out reply card through the mailer, the automatic mailer. It has to do with what the state has determined is the appropriate structure for the communications with the program. And it was deemed that it was more important to not confuse people with the rate choice, even though I understand it makes logical sense to be able to just choose the standard rate simply through that method. But it was really structured to make sure that people had an easier path of understanding if they wanted to opt out of the program. That was emphasized as the more important, easier choice for that mail-in option.
All right, so next question was how much are Jewel Community Power and Hudson Valley Energy paid as part of the contract? Or, what percentage?
It depends on the demand, and so it is. We saw the rate was 6.361 cent for 100% renewable, and 6.078% for the standard rate. That includes a 0.008, so 8/100ths of a cent for an administrative fee. That's included within those prices. So our administrative fee that we split is 8/100ths of a cent. So that is it, and it is, it's included in the program rates. So it's not an additional fee, but if you were to break it down for the households, it works out to be about, I think, $4 or about $4 to $6 per household per year. But it's baked into the rate, and that rate again had to be better than the utility non-renewable rate.
Okay, so kind of related to that, there was also a question about how sales tax is incorporated into the CCA supply rate, because on a regular full service SunHud bill, you can see the sales tax applied, but with the CCA supply, you don't see a sales tax. And the question was, is a tax paid? Where is it accounted for?
So it's down towards the, I think, and Roberta, you can double check me since you and I have been, you've been reading even more so than me on this dissection of the Central Hudson bill. But I believe that the sales tax is calculated inclusively down after the supply charges section, so it does include that. So there is an accounting of some sales tax associated with the program, but not what we try to make sure to account for is for non-profit, for those customers that should not be paying sales tax. They should not have to pay sales tax through this program as well. So that would include for example, if a municipality, one of our partner communities, wanted to participate in the program, we want to make sure that if they're included, they are not paying sales tax as part of the program.
Yeah, I pulled up a Central Hudson bill when this question was asked, just to double check. And for our CCA example bill, which lists Direct Energy as the supplier, PO Box, blah, 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 Tulsa, Oklahoma, it just has one line item for electric supply charge, the 0.06361. And then after that, there's no indication of any taxation charges. It just lists payments, adjustments, that kind of thing below it. So I think the question was somehow sales tax incorporated into that rate. Does Direct Energy pay it elsewhere? And maybe it's something that we can find out directly from Central Hudson from our friend John, who's been helping us with this. All right, I'm just double checking to see. Oh, how are people notified if their opt-out has gone through? Is it by email or mail? How long does it generally take to be notified?
When a opt-out is submitted, we do ask
Yes.
for an email, because there's an email generated with a message, all of the information contained within it. So it's almost instantaneous that you get a confirmation email that you're opted out. If we submit an opt-out for someone, they don't have an email, we do have a transaction ID number that we can share with them, that, just that is proof of the opt-out or the opt-down choice too. Actually, an ID is provided for each of those, so it's instantaneous when we submit through the form. It takes about a billing cycle, though, for that to be reflected on someone's bill, because we make the change instantaneous, and there's an indication, a proof of it having happened with the supplier, but then there's the communication between the supplier and Central Hudson, so it can be a billing cycle before it happens. And if, depending on the timing of meter read dates and billing cycles, it could end up being a little bit more than 1 month, maybe a week or so more, depending on when it's submitted.
Related to that, who does the email come from that people should expect?
It says it comes from Jewel Community Power.
And related to that, if someone just signs and dates the opt-out card, but thus there's no email address involved in opting out, what will they receive?
If they do the mail-in, there is no return receipts that they receive of opting out. The best proof, they can contact us to follow up on that, and we can verify for them. And the ultimate check is to look at your bill from when the program starts and just be sure that nothing changed on your bill. That you should still see those 3 line items and no indication of being in the program, just as a backup.
And if someone opts out during the 30-day opt-out period, even if it's right at the end of the opt-out period, will their bill go into CCA, or will it make sure that that doesn't happen?
As long as it's done and postmarked by by that period, they will not be rolled into the program.
Okay. I'm just double checking. I think I was able to answer the rest of the questions, but
I see
just
somebody
scrolling
asked a
through.
question or just a comment that Direct Energy has a checkered history that turns up quickly in a Google search. And that speaks to one of the benefits of this program. It's true, Direct Energy does not work exclusively with renewable energy. They're based in Texas. They've got dealings with fossil fuel energy. But the beauty of community choice aggregation, the CCA program, is that it is, in essence, handcuffs on the suppliers, where they are by contract, by a 3-party contract between the supplier, the administrator, Jewel, and the communities. They are locked in to deliver just what we want them to do. So against the challenges that have happened in the energy marketplace, some very bad actors and bad experiences, which has led to a lot of distrust, the idea of this community choice aggregation program is that it handcuffs the supplier to deliver the elements of the program that we need them to deliver, which is that fixed rate. There's a verification, and a very robust verification, of the sourcing of electricity within the state around renewables in a way that has no restrictions on consumers. So that is really what's very important for us and very powerful by this program. And there's lots of wonderful indicators about how the state sees this mechanism as a very powerful way to achieve the goals that we talked about of transforming the grid, putting a significant amount of renewable power into the New York grid, transforming the mix that's in the New York State grid, and in a way that does not deliver extra costs to consumers, does not put the burden of cost on the consumers. It's again, to use that term, it's a way to take advantage of the market in a symbiotic way to deliver benefits to communities, to community members, and ultimately to everybody by improving the New York State grid.
All right, so that pretty much sums up all the questions that I wasn't able to answer. There were a couple more related to community solar and so forth, but thanks to working on the Central Hudson bill course that we're developing, I've been able to gain some understanding of the nuances of that. So I was able to answer those questions.
I see somebody commented that Direct Energy is not based in the U.S. That's true. Their originally, their headquarters for Direct Energy is in Texas, but it is a UK-owned company. But again, handcuffed by our program.
Yeah. And someone, I forgot about this, but Central Hudson is owned by Fortis, who are a national company as well. So it seems like, unfortunately, there's a lot of international players these days.
As everything does. And I do see there's a question about the sourcing of materials for construction of solar panels. And I'm happy to have a much longer conversation about that. We definitely delve into that, and just as a kind of a forward indication for the amount of information we shared, and I thank everyone again for your tolerance and patience, but we'll continue to do these outreach and education events, even online. We'll continue to do this so people can learn about the programs. But Roberto has been fantastic in working with me on helping to create some courses on specific topics. And we've referenced it a couple of times, but we will offer in this format and hopefully live again someday, these education opportunities. The one that we're currently working on is about how to read your utility bill, particularly with the details of understanding what the Central Hudson bill looks like and how it works with these programs and other programs, because there's a lot of information there. The term I use is that energy is a second language for everybody, including us, because it doesn't stay static. We're also working on a course for a deep dive into the New York State grid and understanding how renewables work. So kind of getting even to a 201 level about understanding the ins and outs of the systems that are referenced, with this idea of where sourcing comes in and how does it figure into the economic benefits, and what are the transactions involved. So if you're interested, definitely stay tuned. Contact us to be put on our information list too, so first and fast when we do roll out these programs. We're going to work through our community partners to spread information, but get on our information list and we'll directly deliver information about these additional education opportunities. And don't hesitate to contact us. Call us anytime with your questions or for need for any assistance. It's what we do every day.
I guess we're getting near the end. This is Ray Oberly again. No more questions?
Well, I did notice there were a few actually at the bottom of the chat. I hadn't seen them, I guess, while we were answering some of the questions that came in as well. So if you want, I can open that up, Jeff, and just touch on the last couple ones.
Yeah, sure. If that's okay, let's go a couple more questions here.
Sure, yeah, just at the very bottom. Okay, so I'll reiterate one of them. Roberta, the question was partially answered with respect to if I have net metering and the excess energy that I generate usually gets credited at the end of the year by Central Hudson. They establish a dollar amount for the kilowatt hours. We're wondering what dollar amount gets applied if you're part of the CCA, because your supply is different from just the regular SenHud supply rate. Maybe this is something we have to ask John about from SenHud.
Was this about, I'm sorry, but the beginning of the question, was it about having a solar system on and basically the rate you were paid for over generation, or something separate?
Yeah, so the way it works, according to John, is each month you just get your kilowatt hour credit, and so it's not a dollar amount, but at the end of the year, you kind of level up with Central Hudson, and whatever kilowatt hours excess you have, they actually pay you, or in a dollar amount, and it's based on Central Hudson delivery and supply rates. So the question was, if you have CCA rates, which are applied, so on and so forth, and I didn't know the answer to that.
And again, something we can answer in our deeper dive with the utility bill course. But
yeah.
to clarify
very
to Marlon's
questions. Good one.
just to clarify again too, Marlon asked, I confused people with this idea of New York State generated renewables and renewable solar power in Central Hudson territory. Through CCA, by being a member of the CCA, you're only paying for renewable power produced in New York State, solar, wind, or hydro. Parallel to that, if you choose to subscribe to community solar, by being a subscriber, you are fostering the development of solar power in Central Hudson territory. So CCA is New York statewide, community solar is Central Hudson territory. And then with the other, the economic aspect is that you achieve an a monetary credit for being a subscriber to community solar. So just to clear that up. All right, is there anything else, Roberto?
One person had the question, what is the cost of the solar subscription that is withdrawn from my account monthly?
Very good. On community solar, there is no subscription fee for the companies that we work with. Some companies do have monthly subscription fees, do have entrance fees. We do not work with those companies. We do not support them through our partnership program. There is no upfront money. There's no monthly fees. There is no exit fees for this. There is just transfer of information to become a subscriber, and then you are identified a portion of that solar field that yields a 10% roughly monetary credit on your utility bill. So simple and clean in that respect. Use that as a benchmark if you're considering another company's offer. Just make sure that they're as consumer friendly is my advice. All right, it is now 8:45. All contact information is on there. Please do contact us with more questions, but I want to let everybody go, including our very kind town supervisor who's been here for the duration and kindly hosted this. So Ray, anything else before we close out?
This is Ray Oberly again. I just want to make some comments following up what you said. I wish to thank you all for an excellent presentation, going through in fairly detailed information on the whole process and bills and all numbers and stuff. The other thing is, as you roll out more workshops or presentations or programs, we will advertise them on our webpage. If it's, some meeting or something, we'll advertise it at town board meetings and newspapers so that you're aware to be able to participate. So this is not just a one-shot presentation. We will continue to work with you like we have for the last year or so, because this is about the third or fourth presentation you made to the town. So we're not going to leave people alone without information. So with that, I thank them all for coming and asking their questions, and hopefully they all learn and stay with the program. Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great night.